David had always been an animal lover. Since childhood, he had felt a deep connection with animals, believing that they, too, had emotions, dreams, and an unspoken language of love. One sunny afternoon, as he walked past the town's old pet shelter, something caught his eye, a small, rusty cage tucked away in the corner. At first, he thought it was empty. But then, a faint movement made him stop. Inside the cage sat a frail white cat, its fur dirty and matted, its eyes dull from exhaustion. What shocked David the most was how the cat still managed to wag its tail, as if clinging to the last shred of hope. Curiosity and concern pulled him closer. The tag on the cage simply read, "Cat." No name, no details, just a lonely creature abandoned for who knows how long. As David crouched down, Cat lifted its tiny paw as if begging for affection. The sight broke David's heart. "How long has he been here?" David asked the shelter worker, a tired-looking man named Mike. Mike sighed. "Too long. His owner left him months ago and never came back. No one wants to adopt a cat that looks this weak. He barely eats anymore." David felt a lump in his throat. He couldn't imagine the pain Cat had endured, locked in a cage, waiting every day for someone to take him home, only to be ignored. He reached through the bars, and the little cat weakly rubbed its head against his fingers. That was it. David couldn't walk away. "I'll take him," David said firmly. Mike raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? He's in bad shape. Might not even survive." David looked at Cat, who still wagged his tail despite everything. "He hasn't given up. I won't either." When David brought Cat home, it wasn't easy. The poor thing was scared, weak, and barely touched his food. He spent most of his time curled up in a corner, too exhausted to move. David knew that patience was key. Every day, he sat next to Cat, talking to him in a gentle voice. He placed food nearby, never forcing him to eat but encouraging him. Slowly, Cat started responding. First, it was just small nibbles of food. Then, he began crawling into David's lap, purring softly. It was a small victory, but it meant everything. Days turned into weeks, and little by little, Cat transformed. His fur became cleaner, his eyes regained their shine, and his tiny frame started filling out. Most importantly, he learned to trust again. One day, while David was reading on the couch, he felt a soft tap on his hand. He looked down to see Cat, standing proudly on his now stronger legs, staring up at him with bright, grateful eyes. Then, to David's surprise, Cat did something he had never done before. He jumped onto David's lap and snuggled against his chest. David laughed, running his fingers through Cat's now soft fur. "You're finally home, buddy." Just when everything seemed perfect, an unexpected visitor showed up at David's door. A man in his late 30s stood there, shifting uncomfortably. "Can I help you?" David asked, eyeing the stranger cautiously. The man hesitated before clearing his throat. I think you have my cat." David's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively glanced at Cat, who was sitting comfortably on the couch, tail curled around his paws. "I don't think so," David said firmly. "This cat was abandoned at a shelter for months." The man sighed. "I know. I left him there." Anger boiled inside David. "You left him to starve in a cage, and now you think you can just take him back." The man lowered his gaze. "I messed up. I was going through a tough time, lost my job, got evicted. I couldn't take care of him, but I've got my life back together now, and I wanted to see if he's okay." David turned to Cat, who was watching the conversation intently. There was no recognition in his eyes, no sign of longing for his past owner. He simply hopped off the couch and rubbed against David's leg, purring softly. David took a deep breath. "He's more than okay. He's finally happy." The man nodded, his expression filled with regret. "That's all I wanted to know." With that, he turned and walked away. David closed the door and scooped Cat into his arms. "Don't worry, buddy. You're never going back there. Cat responded with a loud, content purr. He had finally found his forever home. Months later, Cat was unrecognizable from the weak little creature David had found in that rusty cage. He was now full of life, chasing after toys, curling up in David's bed, and greeting him at the door every evening. David often thought about that day at the shelter, how fate had brought them together. Some might say David had saved Cat, but in truth, Cat had saved him too. Because sometimes, the smallest creatures teach us the biggest lessons about love, resilience, and never giving up hope.